So I went to a wrestling tournament recently and I figured I'd share my experience with everybody. Now, wrestling was the first grappling martial art that I ever took, and really it's kind of part of what made me want to do MMA as opposed to just boxing or kickboxing. Now, I haven't actually really wrestled in about 10 years, but I have been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm currently a brown belt. Now, while the similarities between Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling are there, the differences are big enough as to where I was kind of worried about whether or not it was going to be a problem when I walked into the tournament. Now, don't get me wrong, I didn't walk in there expecting to smash everybody. In fact, I actually expected to get smashed. But that really wasn't the point of why I was doing it. I just wanted to do something that I loved doing a long time ago that I really have not been able to do since. The reason I haven't been able to do wrestling is because it's really a young person's sport. You have wrestling from the age of like 4 or 5 years old all the way up to 21, 22, but really after that it's basically just for the Olympians, the people that are world class. You don't really have hobbyist wrestling clubs or groups or gyms. That's why a lot of people in high school and college that wrestled end up getting into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu after, is because it's really the only thing that they have. So before we get to the matches, I want to tell you a little something about what ended up happening that day, which actually had a pretty big effect on how things would end up playing out. Now, wrestling has weight classes, and I mean a ton of different weight classes, all the way down from basically just over 100 pounds all the way up to just under 300 pounds. There's a wide range that you're able to wrestle, and I wanted to wrestle in the 225 pound weight division. The only one that's heavier than that is the heavyweight division. Now, the reason I'm saying this is the day of the tournament, I woke up and I was 230 pounds. Now, this presents a problem because that's 5 pounds over the 225 pound weight limit. Now, it is a problem, but it's not as big of a problem as you might think, because over the years, wrestlers have found some frankly crazy ways to lose a really big amount of weight over the course of days and even hours in some cases. So I really wasn't even that worried. I just ended up taking a couple extra layers of clothing, I threw them on, and then I went for a run in the July heat, which in theory should have helped me to lose 5 pounds of water weight. Now, while this is a proven method, I have to say it didn't end up working this time, and really it's all my fault, because what ended up happening was I threw on the clothing, I went for a run, and then when I felt like I was all good, I took the clothing off, I went inside, and I weighed in. Unfortunately for me, I ended up weighing in about 227 or maybe 228 pounds, so I was 2 to 3 pounds over the weight limit still. Now, if you were in a high school wrestling meet, this would typically spell disaster, because they can't just bump you up typically. There's usually going to be somebody else who earned the spot in the weight class above you. Now, the good news for me is that they were able to bump me up to the next weight class, and really what that comes down to is the fact that this was just a random tournament in the middle of the off season for a bunch of guys who were just getting together to mess around a little bit. The bad news though was that it was the heavyweight division, and I don't know if I actually mentioned it yet, but the weight limit for the heavyweight division is 285 pounds. So I was about 227 pounds, potentially having to wrestle against guys that were 240, 260, even 285 pounds. So when I figured that out, when the realization hit, I knew I was in for it, I'm gonna be honest. While this was not the best thing that could have happened to me, I also realized that I had already driven all this way, I had already signed up, paid the money, and I really, really wanted to do this. So I wasn't just gonna go home, and I also wasn't just gonna sit here and complain. I was gonna do my best, bottom line. With that being said, I entered a wrestling tournament on a whim. I hadn't wrestled for a decade up until that point, and I now was going to have to wrestle with guys that were a lot bigger and stronger than me. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of those matches. Alright, so this was my first match of the day, and I have to say, up until this point, I was pretty nervous, I'm not gonna lie. And I'm not afraid to say this to anybody, because at the end of the day, all combat sports athletes face some kind of nerves before, during, or even after a competition. Now, by the time this recording started, I was feeling pretty much nothing, and that's just kind of how I am. I don't really feel a need to get pumped, I don't feel a need to get excited or anything like that. I just kind of feel a need to go out there and do what I'm doing, because at the end of the day, whatever feelings I have, whether they're positive or negative, they're not going to help me out there. There's a job that I have to do, and regardless of how I feel about it, I gotta do it. So I might as well just not feel anything. I might as well just go out there, do my job, and then feel how I feel after, basically. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna take a look at this now, and I'm obviously gonna be telling you what's going on, especially for the people that aren't really familiar with how wrestling works. So here we go. All right, so I'm putting on my little ribbon to show that I'm the green guy. We shake hands, the ref blows the whistle. So I dropped a level right away, and this was to test how he would react. And he did the right thing. He tried to get hands on me. Now, I shot in for a takedown. He's circling around to the back, and he has what is known as a half Nelson. He's trying to run the half. He ends up flipping me on my back, and he's still got the half in, but it's kind of like halfway out. It's not the greatest half Nelson, and that's why he's not pinning me right now. He's got me on my back. He's accruing back points, but he isn't able to get the pin right this second. I'm able to fight it, essentially. So what he has to do is he has to make sure that he sinks his hips back to try and flatten me out. And me, I have to make sure that I'm trying to turn in the direction that I'm turning in now. Really, it's not a fun position to be in. It's extremely tiring. And at that point, I knew, all right, this is not going good for me right now. I'm probably going to lose this, but I cannot give up. I'm not going to give up. So we're just fighting it. The reason why I'm not pinned is because only one of my shoulder blades is touching the mat. So he ends up jumping around into basically what is a jiu-jitsu half guard position, right? And I ended up almost pulling guard. I don't know if you noticed the way my leg went up. It was just a sudden reaction that I had to him trying to change that angle. And when it happened, I said out loud, I didn't mean to, I just kind of said it out loud, fuck, this is not jiu-jitsu. And as soon as I said that, the ref ended up blowing the whistle. It was a pin. Both of my shoulder blades were on the mat for 1 or more seconds. Therefore, that is a pin. Obviously, that did not go the way that I wanted it to. That just kind of is what it is. And I'm not happy that I lost. I am upset that I lost. I'm disappointed. However, I'm overall just very, very happy that I was able to do something that I never thought that I was going to be able to do again. It felt really, really good to get out there and even just get my ass beat. Because even if I was getting my ass beat, I was getting my ass beat at something that I really, really enjoyed, that, as I said, I never thought that I would actually be able to do again. I thought up until this point it was just going to be jiu-jitsu for the rest of my life. And here I am doing something that really introduced me to grappling, and that I have been looking back at ever since I stopped doing it and thinking, you know, those were really the days. So even though I lost that match, I did have another one coming up. That's how these tournaments work. You have at least 2 matches, and if you win, you have more than that. And after that, like I said, I was disappointed, but I was energized. I was ready to go in there and really just move around in the way that I knew that I could and that I wanted to, and just let everything go and leave everything on the mat. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at the second one. All right, so this is the second match, and I just want to say right away, it's starting right in the middle of the action. That's because my camera ended up malfunctioning and it cut off the first couple of seconds of the video. You really didn't miss anything though. It was just us shaking hands and then the referee blowing the whistle. You missed like 1 or 2 seconds. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look. All right, so we're just feeling each other out right now. I end up dropping a level again, and this guy does the exact same thing as the last guy. As soon as I drop a level, he ends up getting hands on me, which is good for him. So we're just hand fighting a little bit. I'm trying to keep him at a distance right away because I'm actually a lot taller than this guy. He shot in for a takedown that I don't think he actually meant. I think he was just testing what I would do, just like I was a second ago. I ended up going for a Russian tie, and then I end up shooting in for basically another test takedown. And he hits the smoothest fireman's carry that I've ever seen. It was ridiculous. Now, what I'm doing right now is actually a little bit of jiu-jitsu that I'm trying to make work to my advantage, but it didn't quite work out the way that I wanted it to. So I end up trying to muscle my way out of this. I end up trying to flip him, and it doesn't work, but I do end up getting out. I end up doing a technical stand-up, and I end up getting out. So we're back to neutral right now. Again, me trying to make sure that I keep him at a distance, me trying to make sure that when we do tie up, we're going forehead to forehead instead of ear to ear. Putting my hands on his shoulders. So I tried to snap him down, and his center of gravity was like impeccable. It was kind of difficult for me to do. So I end up shooting in for a takedown that I didn't set up. He sprawls, and I end up doing a sit through, and I circle around to the back. What I'm doing right now is I'm trying to go 2-on-1. I'm trying to hand fight with him, and I'm trying to get legs in, which was a little bit difficult. I was able to get one in, but I was not quite able to get the other in, which is why I'm hanging off him right now. So I end up bailing out, and he goes for his own sit-through, but because I had the over-under hooks, he couldn't quite get it. He ends up trying to hit the sit-through again, and the reason why he was able to hit it this time is because I was lollygagging. I actually almost did another jiu-jitsu move. I almost did a choke, and because of that, I hesitated, which allowed him the time that he needed to get the sit-through, essentially. He ends up driving me out of bounds, but in doing so, he also ended up getting 2 points because my hip ended up touching the ground. So we're back to neutral, which I don't quite understand why. I figured I was going to end up in the bottom position, but hey, you know. So hand fighting again. Trying to make sure we're low. So he ends up dropping a level on me, and I didn't react in the way that I should have. He was testing what I would do, and I dropped a level there, and he did what he was supposed to do. Now, because he dropped a level and I didn't react right, he ended up shooting in for that takedown. What I ended up doing was I grabbed his ankles and I tried to roll through, hoping that I could end up getting a scramble going that would allow me on the top position. It was not a bad idea, it was just not quite executed right, and because of this, he has me in the half Nelson position, which he ends up getting the pin from. And at this point, you're gonna see just how tired I am. You saw how tired I was a minute ago, right? But you're gonna see just how tired I am. Watch this. I had to take a knee. I could not stand, I could not walk. And that's part of the reason why I ended up getting pinned. I didn't fight as hard as in the first match because I was just so tired. But I told myself that I was not going to give up. I was tired, I knew that it was probably over, but I was not just going to give it to him. I wasn't just going to let him have it. He ended up getting the pin, well deserved, good for that dude. And I honestly didn't feel bad, other than the fact that I was so exhausted I couldn't stand. My vision was all weird, it was very strange, but I ended up being okay. Okay, so things did not go my way, and that's fine, because at the end of the day, the goal wasn't to try and take first place. It really wasn't even to try and medal in the tournament. The goal was to get in there and shake off a little bit of the rust, which I think I did. Overall, even though I ended up losing, I really had a ton of fun, and when I was getting in the car to leave, I actually told my wife, I cannot wait to do this again. I really wish they had more tournaments, but they only have them one time a year. One thing I really liked about this tournament is that it was competitive, but it was not the same kind of competitive as a high school or even collegiate tournament. At the high school and collegiate levels, there's usually always something that people are trying to work towards. At the high school level, it's recruitment for colleges, and at colleges, it's to basically try and make the Olympic team. All of us knew we weren't going to end up getting an offer from Iowa State or Oklahoma or Ohio or really any other top-tier wrestling program, so it really kind of took some of the edge off. We were all there for the love of wrestling, and even though we were trying to beat each other, there was also a certain appreciation and respect for each other that we all had that may not end up being present there at the other levels that you'll see. So with all that said, I know I've probably mentioned it 10 times by now, but I really had a good time, and I really want to do it again. And who knows, maybe next year I'll come back, maybe I'll get a little bit more wrestling in, maybe I'll get my weight down to an acceptable range, and maybe I'll do a little bit better. I'm not promising that I'm going to take first place, I'm not even saying that I'm going to take third place, but who knows, maybe I'll be able to eke out a win. So before I get out of here, I want to say, if anybody has any leads on martial arts tournaments in the New England area that feature some kind of sparring, I would love to hear about them. Even if it's a martial art that I've never done before, I'll try my best to get some kind of training in that art and then enter the tournament. What I'm trying to do here is highlight a bunch of different styles of fighting. Other than that, if you like this video, I would really appreciate it if you would leave a like. If you have any questions or comments for me, feel free to leave them down below. And if you want to see more, definitely subscribe. I will be putting out more very soon. Other than that, thank you very much and good luck out there.